Hi and welcome to Don't Get Offended with me, Sarah Donahue. Now please hit that subscribe button so you can check out all my other videos. Now, quite often I do a controversial podcast on subjects which are a little bit touchy. I haven't done one for a while, but since the World Cup has started, it has become very controversial. So I thought I would get cracking with one because it seems that more things have been happening off the pitch than on the pitch, and there's so much stuff that's just headlining the press. Now, with this whole array of subjects, it seems that no matter what you say in this strange era of folk that walk, you'll be condemned for, well, almost anything and everything, no matter your opinion. And if I agree with, for example, the wearing of multicoloured armbands in support of the LGBT community, I will get condemned for agreeing with politics in sport. And if I don't agree with wearing them, then I could possibly get called homophobic. And if I couldn't care less, then I would no doubt be condemned for that as well. So where am I? Well, I don't really care, because the sooner everyone just chilled out and stopped banging on about all this woke stuff, the sooner we wouldn't have to put up with it. But of course, in some countries, it simply isn't that simple. Well, it is, and I'll explain why later. But let's remember, of course, there are folk in highly paid positions of perpetuating woke who need to scream and shout about anything, no matter how big or small, or how right or wrong, or what repercussions these woke actions could have for fear of their job title becoming, well, obsolete and then ended up on the rock and roll. And currently it really is a shame, because the politics are overshadowing the game of football itself. This is supposed to be a momentous and joyous occasion. Now, do I think these so-called armbands are necessary? Well, they change nothing in a country that doesn't really give a toss about the rights of the LGBT community. And whilst changing nothing in the eyes of the Qatari people, the whole subject is causing friction elsewhere, putting the game in a secondary position. Now, before I get condemned for saying that, it's my belief that we're all equal, and I don't care who you are, how much cash you have. I don't care what country you are from, what colour you are, what shape or size you are, gender, religion. I don't care. We all bleed, we all pee through the same hole, we all die of diseases such as cancer. And if we all jumped off a tall building, we would all splatter on the sidewalk. Now, I've been training the boards in theatres since, well, the age of 12. I've surrounded myself with queens and drama queens, all in my life, and dancing in professional theatrical dance reviews across the world with men in dresses and bikinis, and funnily enough, they look way better than most of the female population. And my best friend that I love more than anything in the world is transgender. In fact, we go back 30 years. In fact, more often than not, I prefer the LGBT community. And everyone can be whoever they want to be in my world of free love and free speech. But sport is sport. And there's no room for political agendas. There are platforms everywhere built for politics. Isn't sport supposed to be the one place for escapism? Now, there are so many places to start here, but this armband business, amid a number of rules and stipulations with FIFA that it has on its team uniforms, well, they prohibit the use of political statements on team kit, and rightly so. And according to their rule 4.3, which I'm sure everyone's checked out anyway, their equipment regulations actually state that no item of playing kit or clothing or, well, anything else may be worn or used in any controlled area if FIFA considers that it's dangerous, offensive, indecent, or includes political or religious statements or slogans. And that also goes for images. Now, regardless of whatever you think or the players think or who you support on or off the field, the bottom line is that everyone in football signed a contract. Contracts are stacked with rules, regulations, stipulations. And the England football team already made the World Cup in Qatar political by taking the knee. Now, FIFA should, in reality, bring in more clauses to stop these politics because fans just want to watch football. Sport is escapism. Sport fans' dreams and aspirations for youngsters and for many mums to get their sons and daughters and husbands out of the house for a few hours so they can have a nice long candlelit bath in peace and tranquility. Now, fans are there for the sport. All they really want to watch is that sport and they have no other agenda. Oh well, kind of, apart from one, to drink alcohol, which brings me on to my next point, the booze ban. So let's get real about this and let me just throw something out there for you and see what you think. Now, I'm sure when Qatar showed an interest and bid for the World Cup, people knew about Qatar and the rest of the Middle East. FIFA certainly did. It's no secret what their beliefs are. They're somewhat dictatorial culture and their alcohol laws. Even though you may say they pulled a fast one and banned it last minute from the stadium, it's the Middle East. What did you expect? That isn't meant in a disrespectful way to Qatar. I'm just being deadly serious. You can't expect any culture to change just for 4 short weeks. I mean, I remember laughing under my breath when I heard about alcohol sponsorship over there, and I thought, oh, this is going to be entertaining because these issues were always on the cards. And I've got no idea why people didn't know this was going to happen. And no matter how much shit hits the fan, and no matter how many times the powers and the masses were reassured, this was always going to happen. Even if contracts are broken and huge fines are imposed, well, it's too late. It's been and gone. And Qatar have got what they wanted, whilst, which is really important, they've also kept their citizens safe. And that is the most important thing, which you guys may not understand. It's all about keeping their citizens safe and not exposing them to something that which really could be pretty dreadful. It's not just Qatar who are so different to the West, so we shouldn't really point the finger. There are a whole host of countries similar when it comes to alcohol or race, religion, sexual orientation and beliefs. But if you don't like a country's culture or ideals, then simply don't go. Qatar and other countries like it are getting better. Back in 2018, Saudi didn't allow women in the WWE Royal Rumble. Too much flesh was on show and it was a bit too overpowering, but now they do. So they are changing, but you can't expect it overnight. It was only around 20 years ago that the British military stopped condemning serving soldiers who admitted to being homosexual. And the American military around the same time passed a bill about the LGBT community within the American military. So we haven't been so woke for ages and ages. It takes time. So let's say that again. Us, the British and the Americans, haven't exactly been woke for so long. So rather than slagging off a great nation like Qatar, respect that they do have cultural beliefs, regardless of if you agree with them or not. They are changing and adopting a more Western approach, but things take time, and it wouldn't do for us all to be the same. They are a Muslim country. And if you don't like the Muslim ideology, then simply do not go. And if you do, don't expect them to change their entire thought process just for 4 short weeks and lower their tolerance threshold on Western ideals just because we accept everyone regardless. And British football supporters want a good boozy knees up. Yes, everyone has the right to be who they want to be, but not everyone is as up to date as the Brits and the Americans. I mean, let me just throw this out there. I live in Spain. Spain, for the most part, well, it's got to be a decade behind in most areas, from their shops through to their fashion sense, especially their footwear. Their interior designing of homes, bars and restaurants leaves a lot to be desired, and their work ethic, or lack of it, well, it's terrible. So, well, I should say not everywhere, especially like places like Barcelona and Madrid, which are fantastic, but most of the time it's really lacking. It's very old-fashioned. Anyway, the UK and America are massively advanced when it comes to everything, including culture and acceptance. But unless you travel globally and spend serious amounts of time living out of a suitcase, like me, then you wouldn't see all of this. You only know what the news tells you. But there are so many countries like this. And this is why I said at the start, it simply isn't that simple. What people must understand is that every day on our Western streets we see drunken people staggering around, shouting abuse, swearing, fighting, and generally being obnoxious. Unfortunately, it's a part of our culture and it's fairly normal. We also see this on TV shows such as Brits Abroad, and this behaviour is transmitted across the world for all to see. And you can't dump this obnoxious potential behaviour traits on different cultures who have never been exposed to it. It would be truly frightening for those that live in Qatar. And trusting the British public not to embarrass our nation through alcohol consumption, well, really, it's a bit like trusting German hotel guests not to rush down and commandeer all the sunbeds at 5 o'clock in the morning with a towel. You know, on one hand, we are all woke, and on the other hand, we take a bite at Qatar, thus contradicting ourselves by being non-accepting ourselves when Qatar are only protecting their own society, their own culture and their beliefs. They're just protecting everyone in Qatar. As someone that has spent considerable time in the Middle East, including Qatar many moons ago, both working for a sheikh, funnily enough, in my younger years, and powerboat racing, you know, I can't think of a single time I haven't been treated with total respect. The first time I went to the Middle East, I think, was around 1992, and it was way stricter back then. And I find their country and those within it incredibly polite and respectful. I even had the pleasure of one of the sheikhs allowing me to test drive his multi-million-dollar race boat. Me, a woman in a man's sport, in a man's world, allowed that privilege. Change is coming. Now, maybe FIFA rules should be updated to include that if any country has beliefs and laws not in line with our die-hard woke society, then they cannot bid to host a sporting event. Just throwing it out there. If FIFA's rules were more rounded, then none of this would have happened. Now, the UK, it's pretty safe to say, has gone to the dogs with this extreme, woke, soft, pleasing, pacifying, pussifying society. But we can't expect everyone to be the same. And maybe we should actually take a page out of Qatar's rulebook and grow a spine when it comes to some issues. Of course, none of those mentioned here, but maybe we should. The Middle East is growing at a tremendous rate, and it's buying up all the major sporting events because it has the fluidity of surplus cash, which everyone is, well, they're happy to take, and complaining after the checks are cashed. Even though the Western world's woke society knows of the potential pitfalls of holding events in places such as the Middle East. Even F1 hasn't been plain sailing since these venues were added to the calendar. But it has to be said, no expense is spared. The venues are fabulous. They really do know how to put on a great show. And this can't be overlooked. And we can't overlook just how fast the infrastructure appears in all its majestic prowess. And it is here I leave you with this thought. Forget your multicoloured armbands and your concerns for others' feelings, getting hurt because they don't agree with everyone's sexuality. Forget your thirst for beer that can't be quenched. And just for 1 minute, cast your thoughts to the hundreds of thousands of migrant workers shipped in to the Middle Eastern Gulf cities by bus to work in 40 and 50 degrees of heat. And then they ship back out to the deserts to sleep in shitty conditions. They die in their droves across these huge nations as they are requested to work shifts, which guarantees that infrastructures can be put in place twice as fast than any other country in the world, with little or no safety or care, working in heat reaching way past 40 degrees up to 50 degrees, getting paid an absolute pittance. Now, thousands of migrants die every year through lack of safety, illnesses, heat exhaustion, kidney failure, and simply unexplained deaths. Now, it's not something that I've just read in the paper just recently. It's been going on before I first visited back in the 90s. I've seen the shitty existence up close, the lack of safety, and I remember people dying whilst being around the Dubai Marina area when Dubai Marina was being built back in the early 2000s, because I was there in a hotel room overlooking it with my friend Deborah. And I think at the time Deborah Franz could have been one of the UIN commissioners for powerboat racing. There was a commotion down below and another migrant worker had fallen into a deep pit, which you will now know as the marina. So next time you're feeling a little bit woke about the World Cup or being deprived of not being able to sip a pint of cool lager whilst watching the game, look around you as you sit in one of the greatest stadiums in the world, or you bitch about that great stadium, and know that thousands of men have died right there on that spot so you can watch a game of football. I would say that the Middle East would far better serve humanity by committing to better treatment of these migrant workers that make these luxuries that you and I enjoy possible, by giving them a safer and more comfortable working environment and, of course, better wages. And if we really take a deep dive, had Britain done what it was supposed to do when it signed the agreement back in 1916, when Qatar became a British protectorate, and kept to its guns about making sure any form of slave labour was abolished, then migrant workers would be inherently better treated now, to this day. But no, Britain simply couldn't be bothered checking in time to time. So therefore, bad treatment of workers has been inherited from one Qatari generation to the next. So as you can see, there are bigger problems out there than what? A pint of beer and a coloured armband. Thanks for listening to Don't Get Offended with me, Sarah Donahue. Sorry about the sound quality. I'm in a really high room. But please hit the subscribe button, and also the rest of my podcasts, which are voice only and they're not video, you can find on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favourite podcasts. Again, Don't Get Offended with me, Sarah Donahue. Thanks for watching.